Even though it's high summer, there's still plenty to do in the garden, and I'm here to give you some help along the way. I'm Jane Moore and welcome to July's STIHL Garden Guide. I'm here in my garden every month sharing my tips and tricks with you, so make sure you subscribe to the STIHL GB YouTube channel. Lots of plants need a quick trim in summer to keep them in order. It's a good time to contain the rampant nature of climates like Wisteria, but also trained trees like my espalier apple tree need a summer prune to keep them in shape and to let the light get to the fruit. Don't delay summer pruning trained fruit like this, and pear trees too. Those that are sort of restricted into a certain shape need a light trim to keep that lovely shape and to stop the tree putting all its effort into new leafy growth when you want it to be concentrating on growing apples. This pruning also lets the sun get into the fruit so they can ripen really nicely. And while you're at it, thin the apples and pears to 2 fruits a cluster so they get nice and big. It's also a good time to do a spot of light pruning of my flowering Japanese cherry tree. I've been meaning to take this branch off for ages as it's spoiling the shape. But cherries, plums and all of their relations are prone to a fungal disease called silver leaf, which means that winter pruning really isn't a good idea. Just look at my beautiful wisteria. It's having a second flush of flowers, and they often do that in late June or July, but it still needs a little bit of pruning now too. Wisteria needs regular pruning to keep its growth and size under control. Otherwise it'll be off round the drain pipe, up under the roof tiles and in the gutter. But regular pruning, including this quick summer tidy up, also improves the flowering enormously. Although it seems complicated, wisteria pruning is actually quite simple, especially the summer pruning, which is as straightforward as can be. Simply snip off these trailing stems back to a stub of a few buds, and that's it. We'll give it a proper formative prune in the winter when the leaves have dropped off and you can really see what you're doing. But this will tidy it up. And a bit like the apple tree, it makes sure that all that energy goes into creating more flowers rather than taking over next door's roof. This is one of my favourite parts of the garden. I love all these weeds and wildflowers growing in the cracks in the paving. Look, I've got self-seeded geraniums, love in a mist or nigella, marjoram and a carpet of self-heal, which is a brilliant plant for bees. I deliberately laid this paving straight onto the soil so that the wild plants would have room to grow in between. I used to have a small lawn here, but it was never very happy and it was a lot of bother to look after. So I opted for this gappy wildflowery paving instead, and I love it. It's brilliant for wildlife, great to walk on and no bother. But it's also a brilliant way to manage water in my city garden. Heavy rain can soak away into the ground easily rather than running off the top. Not only does this type of paving or hard surface reduce the chance of any flooding issues, but it also means that the moisture is permeating the soil and available for all the plants around, like my trees and shrubs. If you use a permeable paving like this or keep hard paved areas to a minimum, it can really help to prevent surface water flooding in your neighbourhood, especially if you live in a town or a city like me. And this type of flooding is becoming serious as we get more and more extreme weather with heavy rainfall, and it's really not helped by people paving over their gardens solidly for car parking and easy maintenance. This is so easy to do yourself, and it solves a lot of environmental issues too. Deadheading flowers as they go over is essential to keep the show going and to keep your plants looking attractive and encourage even more blooms. Bedding plants and repeat flowering perennials need to be prevented from setting seed to make sure that they keep on flowering. So just nip off any finished flowers from all your bedding plants like pelargoniums, petunias, cosmos, and so on. They'll keep on flowering as they're desperate to set seed so they can reproduce themselves. So don't let them. The more you deadhead, the more flowers you will get. It's that simple. You can even deadhead some perennials like lupins, delphiniums, and these sanguisorbas. But it's repeat flowering roses like this one that really need regular deadheading, so they keep repeat flowering, of course. I'm really lucky that the white butterflies haven't found my cabbages yet. I'll be keeping an eagle eye on them and picking the caterpillars off by hand if, or probably actually when, I spot them. They're voracious eaters and can reduce cabbage or kale plants to ribs in days. If you've got a bigger area, then it's worth netting them with something like this fine mesh, which will keep the butterflies out and stop them laying their eggs on the cabbages. But it's amazing how determined butterflies can be, and they often end up on the inside of the netting. Of course, what I really should have done was to plant some nasturtiums nearby. White butterflies often lay their eggs on nasturtium leaves, and when the caterpillars hatch and feed, they naturally then choose the nasturtium as the top choice for their own offspring, taking the focus away from my lovely cabbages. You might have heard of this companion planting. I think it really does help to protect your plants, although there's not really any scientific proof as such. But it just makes sense to me that because whitefly hate the pungent smell of these little French marigolds give off, then that makes them ideal for planting near cabbages, tomatoes, kale, and anything else that is prone to whitefly. Talking of caterpillars, keep your eyes open because this is the time of the year when you might spot some. Some of them are more welcome in my garden than others, and these cinnabar moth caterpillars are more welcome than most. These stripy little fellows are feeding on ragwort, which I wouldn't normally allow to grow in my garden, but they love it. And later they'll turn into the most beautiful red moth that actually flies during the day, so I'll be able to appreciate it. One of my favourite summer jobs, and my last job for today, is to dig up these early potatoes. Oh, don't they look great? You have to be thorough though. It's so easy to miss some. Like buried treasure, aren't they? Perfect for potato salad. Well, I hope that's given you a few hints and tips to keep your garden looking good in July. But don't forget to sit back and enjoy it as well. Let us know what you're up to in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the STIHL GB YouTube channel for more ideas in August. See you then.